my man Parrish asked me to be a part of the documentary about the history and the future perspective of Detroit from my vantage point. I was blessed to be a citizen of Detroit, born and raised West Side, God-fearing parents, brought up in an era where you loved your neighbor. We moved on Ward and Joy Road, and then I attended McFarland Elementary. We grew up with the typical poor family situation. My mother was a maid. It's 11 of us. I got 7 sisters and 3 brothers, and we grew up in a time where you could look out for your neighbor. You could be a part of the community activities. Not like now. I've been on this street I'm on now for like 15 years, and I ain't never even been in my neighbor's house because it's just don't nobody want to open up because you don't want the drama that might come with being in other folks' business. Whereas before, we made it a habit of being in everybody else's business. So, growing up in Detroit, we were a part where the blacks owned all the businesses. We owned the cleanesses. We owned the grocery stores. And coming up as a young kid in Detroit, it was just fun because we made our toys. We made our bow and arrows. We made our go-karts. Wasn't no Nintendo, the Super Nintendo, wasn't no computer, wasn't no microwave, wasn't no digital watch. I mean, you just really got out there and had fun the old-fashioned way, kickball. I was the marble champ on the block. It just a lot of that fun that was gone. And then came a spirit of growth, which was good, but it was like a double-edged sword.
Now, at what age were you and what year was it when you could feel the whole energy changing around you?
Well, as I became going into my teens, I felt the movement, the shift.
Like what year was it?
Might have been 1970, 71. Coming out of the civil rights movement and the passage of the civil rights bill, which allowed blacks for the first time to really have that sense of economic freedom. We can vote. We can go into the restaurants. We could go. Parents were proud. When I was a kid, I remember my mother, who's from the South, we used to have to cross the street when we seen white people. She would just grab my hand and just, get out the white people's way because they were afraid of white folks. And so after the 60s, 65, and after the movement, my mother felt a little freer in terms of just, being able to walk down the street, being able to, conduct your family household. So the transition was real. I mean, now what you see now in today's Detroit is just me by me. And, nobody really wants to look out for each other. I mean, when I was a kid, there was always rent parties. If somebody was getting evicted, you wouldn't go out there and watch their clothes and TVs be put out in the middle of the street. Somebody would take you in. Somebody would come get you and help you. And if they found out you was losing your apartment, we'd throw a big shindig. Now, when you get evicted, everybody rumbling through your shit. Everybody trying to get what they can get. We have no compassion for the next person. And that's all due to the infrastructure being dismantled. Detroit was the epitome of freedom for the United States. We won World War II. We had the industrial might. The factories were here. We were part of the Industrial Revolution. We were the ones that helped defeat Hitler and bring freedom to the United States and really thus far bring economic power to the black family. But that shift changed. After the civil rights movement, the capitalists said they would never leave an infrastructure intact that would come up against them. The infrastructure, the job base, the economic base helped fuel the civil rights movement that came against the capitalists. And they dismantled. I mean, when my young older brothers and them were coming up, y'all, they used to go to Chrysler, go to Ford. They'd quit Ford, go to GM. And it was just plentiful. I mean, it was unemployment. With you didn't have to have a high school diploma. You could go and get a job that could feed your family with just, you was just willing to work. And that was so plentiful. So once the civil rights movement came in, once the corporations decided that the people was gaining too much momentum, there was a shift change. And that was the first time that African Americans had a political system in their hands. So when Coleman Young came into office, they dismantled the economic power here and started to shift the jobs to Mexico. And what they did, they moved the jobs out and brought the dope in. So the number one employer now is the dope trade. You can't get there's no massive transit system. Every time a transit bill comes up to Lansing, they kick it down because they don't want the citizens of Detroit to be able to go outside the market and get employment. Well, if you can't get employment, you gon' feed your family, so you gon' sell some weed. You gon' sell some crack. You gon' eat. So now the shift changed because the government, not only did they move the jobs out and put the dope in, they hooked a whole generation on drugs. When we was 10 years old, well, let me say it like this. When I was 10 years old, my friend Paulie came and got me and took me down, and we joined the Black Panther Party. And it was really something then, because he had the tam, the dashiki, and I really looked up to him. He said, man, come on with me. And we went down on Elmhurst and Linwood, and he took me up there, and we started watching the films, Mao Zedong and the Protestant Revolution. I mean, the whole neighborhood. Our parents sent us down there to watch these films, and then we go watch the movies. Then we go up on Davis and Linwood. We sell the papers. I mean, there was a movement going on. There was, people would walk past you and say, hey, brother, right on. And then 4 or 5 years later, all that was gone. I mean, you could look from the Boulevard and Linwood to Linwood and Davison, and you would find 5 to 6 OD bodies. They put that penny capsule and that cheap dope in here, and a lot of kids didn't know what the dope was.
Talk about what a penny cap was.
Well, penny cap was what the government flooded. It's like when you dropped the bomb on Hiroshima. They dropped the penny cap bomb. It was pure 100% heroin.
For $1.
Yeah, for $1. And then they put it in around the high schools because they knew that they would be the first one to spread the news. So it started off being a fun and getting high, snorting dope. My sister got hooked in 1967 on heroin. Didn't nobody know. My parents didn't know how to handle it. They didn't know. She was just 9. They thought she was just, maybe having fun. She went to Cass Tech. She was an all-A student. And now she can't even talk. She's disabled because she's been on drugs for like 20, 30 years. And so she went from an all-A student to a drug cross-addicted crack and heroin addict. And her and all her friends all got wiped out. So it was a systematic plan that came in here with Detroit. Now, you compare that with the underworld. Now they need a new spearhead because Nichols, the Black Power movement was coming in, Coleman Young now. And Nicholas and them, when the police controlled the drug trade.
Sheriff John Nichols, former chief.
When they were moving out, they had to have somebody in place. So they were looking for some strong guys. So that's when Frank Usher, Nitty, and a lot of them boys came up to play. I used to watch their cars as I got older.
Yeah, where at?
Over at the probation office. Because they used to pay the probation officer, so they would have to report for parole. Okay. My brother-in-law was Buddy Love. He was a probation officer, and he used to have me watching all the dope dealers' cars because he had a deal going on with the dope dealer. If they just paid him, he'd just fill out their probation papers parole papers saying that they came and they showed up when they actually didn't show up. And then he just don't let me watch the cars. I said, watch the car. They throw me $100. I said, just make a few little dollars on the side. But having said that, I'm trying to transition you back into the movement, the swing from being a very strong community to being what we have now, just buck wild, fuck you, no respect, kids with their pants hanging out their ass, and nobody seems to have a solution to what was going on. And then we building all these motherfucking mega churches all around the city, $30 and $40 million, while people lights and gas is getting cut off right down the block. We fucked up. We confused. There's no leadership, and we're rich. We are a brace of people that everybody seems to be able to manipulate but us. We spent $2 billion with every other ethnic group in the city of Detroit but our own. Our dollar didn't even get out the gate. Everybody else dollar circulate 4 or 5 times before it leave the community. Everybody's eating off our dollar. We're feeding the Koreans. We're feeding the Arabs. We're feeding the Chinese. And I'm not against any of these cultures for being smart enough to take advantage of the American system, but us. And then we wonder why our kids don't have any sense of belonging because their leadership is fucked up. The Reverend flying around here in jet planes, walking around, riding around here in Mercedes Benz, people lights and gas cut off. How can you build a $30 million church in a neighborhood that's worth 10 cents? It just don't make common sense. And what you need with a $30 million church, when people are suffering and can't feed their families right down the street from you, who are you worshiping? What God is this? I've never met a God that wanted us to build a $30 million church. So that one of the things that I really want to touch upon was that when the drug shift was coming, you had a couple of mercenaries out here that was just running around here feeling like they gonna make a difference, and that was Hayward Brown now. And Hayward Brown then was like robbing the dope houses and taking the money and kind of like, giving it to the poor. So they was like, and they don't get a lot of stories, but those on the street was kind of like happy because they was sticking up the dope houses, and they was causing a problem for the Nichols and them in the police department because they was robbing the dope houses and fucking up the flow.
Was that in the 10th precinct?
Well, I don't know what precinct it was, but
because
it was
in 70, you remember the 10th precinct corruption scandal in like 74 or 6?
I was younger. I was about 12, 13.
Okay, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I brought that up because I was standing right there when Hayward Brown knew. That's a historical event. I was standing right there when they killed the police. I was literally standing here watching them. Yeah, it was a routine traffic stop. The police got out the car. We was over my boy house playing basketball. What street? We was on Schaefer, right at Chicago. We was on my boy house playing basketball. We sitting there playing basketball, and so I had just played the game. We had lost. So then I said, "Well, we gonna go." I said, "Well, I'm gonna walk to the front of we in the backyard. I'm gonna walk to the front of the yard." So when I walked to the front of the yard, I seen the police pull over this car. So when the police pulled over the car, I'm standing there looking across the street. The guy got out the car and flung a shotgun and shot the police. It killed him right there. And everybody just started scattering and running. And that's the first time I really understood that this is a controlled society, because they shut down our neighborhood. They literally, nobody moved. They shut down every street, every block. They were just going in houses. It's like, fuck your civil rights. They was walking in your house because the guys were on foot and they were looking for them. So I'm just saying that was a part of just really seeing the police, really come to a neighborhood, their true power, and shut a neighborhood down. They shut that motherfucker down, man. But nobody moved. And I couldn't even go home. My parents had to wait an hour to come get us from over my boy house. They wouldn't let no cars move in a 2-mile area. It's real. Just to be a part of that. And then, like I said,
so now that was a Haywood. That was Hayward Brown?
That was Hayward Brown.
So what was the outcome of that whole thing?
Well, that's when Ken Cockle came to fame. Because when they finally caught Hayward Brown and Bethune, they beat their motherfucking ass. Something real sick, because they killed 2 police officers. And when they caught up with them, they whooped their motherfucking ass. And Ken Cockle was a revolution. He was like, I don't give a fuck if they kill whoever. They got rights. And they got a right to be defended. And that nigga got in there and walked them boys up out of there. And that's when he got his pay.
Oh, they were found not guilty.
They were found not guilty.
Because they were supposed to be in fear for their life from the police or something?
Yeah, well, the police beat them, and it was right on TV. He whooped their ass. And so that negated that. It kind of helped them with the trial. I don't remember how it all went back then, but I'm just saying that was just to be a flashpoint in my life. You know what I'm saying? I was just standing there looking when a motherfucker hopped out the car and blew a motherfucker brains out. That was a part of the history of the city.
Yeah, right.
So that's when that violence area, that kind of the tail end of the movement. It was because the movement, they had lost their focus. They were just doing shit. Y'all hear
it was like the year that the murders really started jumping up in Detroit was about 72. 3.
Yep.
71, 2 in there.
Yeah.
It went from 70, might have had 200 murders, and then by 74, you had 700.
Yeah. Well, I grew up, I mean, my grandmother was from Memphis. And so I grew up with the family structure thing really heavy. I mean, she was a numbers lady. She carried numbers for the Wingates. The Wingates was one of the powerful number of families in the city. They were the kind of part of the unions and dealt with a lot of the mafia. And she ran a book. And she was a very powerful woman in the city, Lucille Smith. And she carried the number of policy racket, and we would, she have us running up on the corner getting the numbers. I mean, so I grew up with that transition of seeing, that was considered something big, the numbers. I mean, that was big, illegal. It's equivalent to what you might see in the dope game back then, because we wasn't selling dope back then like we are now. We wasn't a part of the trade, but the numbers racket was very prevalent in our community, and we grew up there. I mean, so every time somebody wanted to come up here and get a job from Memphis, where she was, they would come stay at my grandma's boarding house. And then once they, where was that at? That was on Linwood and Court. And they stayed at my grandmama's house, till they got on their feet. Come here and get a job like that. They ended up staying there a week or two till they got their place. So my grandma's was a one-stop to you coming in the city and really getting your shit together. And then, so I grew up with that sense of love. I remember one day, it was a man sitting at the table, and with the kids, the man was homeless. I guess you wouldn't call it home. You wouldn't call it homeless back then. The man didn't have a place to stay or nothing. So my grandmama bought him, man, was feeding him. We got enough kids, like kids. So we had that laughing at the man, because he just shit there. He was fucked up. And we just couldn't stop laughing. So I remember my motherfucking grandma reached across that table, hauled off and slapped the dog shit out of me. And I was like, my wife, she said, let me tell you something. This could be you one day. And that shit stuck with me. And I don't care what, if I'm at the corner, I see somebody and they need something, I'm in my pocket, man. Because I don't want that to be me. I can't even imagine going down the street with a shopping cart and your whole world in that motherfucking bag. Or like, have y'all seen the latest one of the people that's living up under the bridge and with their families, man? That's some real shit. So, having lived through that area, watching all the number men come through, and have their policies, and got the old Cadillacs and the black community striving to being up to where the crack came in, and the crack really started to really have its effect on another generation.
Now, you said you were involved from about 80 to 90, roughly, right, in the illegal drug activity.
Yeah.
So you...
Unfortunately. Really, I mean...
Yeah.
But you know why I say that, brother? Because
my
parents, and I don't mean to, my parents worked hard, man, for us to have an opportunity, man. And
it's like you use it to sell dope. Yeah, a year away from graduation.
Think about it, man. It's like a chain reaction. You sell dope to the lady. She go shoot the dope up. She smacked the kid. The kid kicked the dog. Dog bite the mailman. I mean, he's just fucking up a whole... I mean, that's not nothing... At the time, we thought we was really doing something. And what was it all for? At the end of the month, I'm locked up. I got a $100 million bond. It took every motherfucking thing, my house in Rosedale, all my property, and in that penitentiary, you walk around, everybody got pictures talking about what they used to be. But this shit, and you come out, you have absolutely nothing. Because if you selling dope, you are not prepared for the market. You're not. Even the ones that's like, I see them all the time. And the day music community in Detroit is driven by drug dealers. And the thing about the drug dealers is, it's a hobby to them. It ain't like it is in the other markets where it's an art form and it's not driven by drugs, it's driven by talent. This is a baller society. We just happen to be a student. This is a smart ass town. These brothers are smart enough to take the drug money, try to invest it to the music business, but they're not talented. They just niggas with outfits, and they like, nigga, why we this, we that, nigga, fuck you in there. You know, they got the money to do the basic stuff. Get your CD, get your thing. Now, I'm not trying to say anything against anybody who wants to aspire to be in the music business, but Detroit music community is driven by dope. And that is the one thing that's really harming us, because not only is it driven by dope, it's driven by the dope mentality. And you cannot tell these motherfuckers anything. I see it happen all the time. Look, man, it's only one way to set your motherfucking project up. And it ain't no different when Barry Gordy did it to today. If you're not setting that project up right, if you're not charting, you're not scanning, and you're not BDSing, then you really ain't doing shit. You really setting the project up for failure. Because they put that system in place because of all the cheating and skimming off the top that was going on in the 70s and 80s by a lot of black promotional, a lot of not just black, by a lot of promotional people. I mean, when I first started doing flyers and passing out flyers on the streets for a lot of the Motown promoters, they was just going into the motherfucking record label just getting bucked. They ain't even had no fucking acts. I mean, the game there was, what you want to do? Well, I'm gonna go get me 3 singers. Or how much you give me $3 million? Give me $3 million. Remember, they gave Isaac Hayes $5 million to go start Stax Records. That motherfucker went down to Memphis, started getting high, bullshitting around. They come over, Isaac, where's the? They got to the label, and they got 20 Lincolns out there. He and the fucking Butler got a Lincoln, and they were like, well, where's the album? Oh, ain't no album. So they had to come and put something in effect to stop that. So when motherfuckers not talking about, man, we the hottest motherfuckers in the D. Oh, you is? I don't see you. Well, nigga, we selling 100,000 records in the store. Oh, you is? I don't see you. See, now they can verify whether or not you're able, and they're spending their money accordingly. But they faced the double-edged sword with Master P and them boys in the South. Them boys in the South were revolutionary. They came and they took the independent system and turned it against the majors. So they vowed never to have that shit happen again. They talk about, well, the music business really ain't doing that good because of the internet. That's bullshit. The internet in and of itself is nothing more than a marketing tool. The internet does not sell records. People still are selling records, but they tricked us like they always trick us into dismantling our music system. Right here in Detroit, we had two couple coalitions, the MMRA. And those coalitions were able to get your records through an independent network and sell through. They convinced the independents to turn against themselves. And while they were secretly doing a deal with the chain stores. But see, the chain stores tricked the Jews. The chain stores convinced the Jews that, look, we'll help you get rid of your old system. And you come in here and work with us. And then once they got rid of all the blacks, then they turned around now the chain stores and saying, fuck you. If you don't do what I program, then we fuck you. We not pushing your record. We don't have to, because you ain't got nobody else you can go to. You can't sell, Pearl's suffering, Shantanique's suffering, Tanya's suffering. 15 record stores in this city have closed in the last 5 to 10 years. Our one stop, the epitome of the music business, is no longer in existence. So how can we really muster up control in this market without those mechanisms? And we ourselves turn on our own system every time we ride about the city and take our dollar to Best Buy. I'm not saying that you shouldn't go to Best Buy or any of the other stores, but if you got that same product right here in your own backyard, it may cost you a couple dollars more. But still support your treasures. Kendrick's Records, part of Motown, Legend, shut down. It's just, and we, with our dollar, we are paying for our own slavery. We are paying to enslave ourselves by our own management, our own money. And that, is part of the things that's hard to see with Detroit as it tries to stay alive. Everywhere you go, everybody talking about moving out of Detroit, moving out of Detroit. So with that being said, that's why it's so hard when you got a lot of your artists have to resort to certain tactics to get publicity. Now you gotta be careful how you say it, because nigga whoop your ass. And I'm old. I ain't trying to get no ass whooping. I ain't trying to call out no names. But the game should be based upon your talent, your ability to get out there and win friends and influence people. You shouldn't have to be. Detroit is so divided. If a motherfucker on the west side, if he caught with an east side cheddar boy, reckon he in the parking lot at Tacoma, he might get his ass whooped. Or if you're on the east side, you caught with a west side cheddar. I mean, you dividing the fan base. So now you got the parents scared. Don't nobody want to come out to your shows, because if it's a show given by the east side, the west side people don't want to come out. If it's a show given, vice versa. So we have a divided music community. We have a broken music system, and we got a city full of money and full of talent. And who gonna figure it out? And we got a record pool, 2 record pools here with 100 motherfucking DJs. That's powerful. Tyrone, this is to you when you see you my dog. You a powerful man. LaRock, you a bad motherfucking man. I envy you, brothers. Even with my date. But if y'all ever figure it out, it's over. If you ever come on one accord, it's over. They gonna feel y'all in this town. Well, anyway, the shift came, and the employment of the drugs moved in, but it hadn't moved in to our youth. It was still a black gentleman's game. If you got out of line, you got killed. But it still was. So you didn't have to have. I'm gonna answer. You didn't have to have pistols to do business. I mean, they could do cocaine and drug transaction, and everybody just shook hands. And then it went from that, as it moved into the 80s with the crack, it became violent. That's when you had to have a pistol to do business, because now you didn't have it in the hands of our older black men. They put it in the hands of our youth. They wanted to speed up a little bit because the older guys was just too laid back. So they were doing deals with the Contras, and they wanted to. So Bush and Reagan, they let their drugs flow in here, because they thought they were going to wipe out another generation. But they had a problem. That generation, my generation at that time, we were a little bit smarter. We was like, fuck that. We not finna get hooked on this shit. But what we started doing, we started taking the drugs and moving the drugs up to Albion, up to Kalamazoo, up to them nice rural communities. So now they had a problem. That's when they were changing the sentencing law. Because now Johnny getting on the tractor, he going 50 miles for rock crack. They got a problem now. Now they want to try to talk about cleaning the shit up. And that was the problem. But the only thing is that generation just brought the violence with it. And then they turned it. Once they got through using that generation and seeing that they couldn't manipulate them like they had intended to, now they got a problem, because that generation started growing up with the Puffy mentality, with the Master P mentality. That was kind of like Russell Simmons was the first independent hip hop icon. So, people were aspiring to do that and get that type of, clothing lines. I mean, those are the things that were being talked about on the streets. And, we were really moving. I mean, I remember going to Wayne State. And I had
1 year.
This is 1980. And I had like another year before I got my bachelor's degree. So I was catching 2 buses to school. And I got on the bus one day, and I caught a bus to school. And I got to school. I didn't have no money for lunch. I just had no money. And I went to McDonald's with a friend. I was just hungry as hell. So on my way back home on the bus, all the fellas from my hood be up at the store. So everybody was up at WD's, all the fellas in the hood.
What street was that?
That was on Apollon and Joy Road. And everybody was up there with the Benzes and they new rides, and everybody was getting money. So when I got off the bus, I stopped at a kicker with everybody. And my boy said, nigga, you need to quit bullshit. You need to get some of this money. I was like, no, I'm about to go. I'm trying to go to school. But I was just, and I said, well, Nick, come by the house. I came by the house later on that day. He dropped me off 3 keys. And from that day, I didn't look back. I became rich. I made my first, I could say about 100 grand. I made 100 grand within 90 days. I quit going to school. And then I bought like 16 houses. It was just on from like 80 to like 87. And niggas was getting rich. Everybody we was getting paid in this town. And we stopped, and then
Now, who were your customers? Were you just selling to other people who sold, or were you dealing with users, or?
now I was dealing well, everybody had their different formula. My formula was, I'm gonna go outside the market because it's too flooded. I don't want to be in here with everybody else. So I started going outside the market. And when you go outside the market, the price is high.
Like, you ain't mean by going out, you were going outside?
I mean,
Okay.
But I be getting indicted. I'll be like Bush Jones, sit up in the motherfucking penitentiary. Or what my point is that, it was resourceful for us to be in that trade because we were able to accomplish things that my father worked 35 years to get
what you got in a year.
And that 1 year, I bought 15 of them. And then I think we started to see the change in like confidential informants. The government broke out money just for snitches. It was like snitches was getting 5 and 10,000. It was more lucrative to tell
than to sell dope, right?
And shit, they were like, just give us some information because they had to stop that flow of cash coming into the black community. We were rich. That's when everybody else was catching hell. Detroit was thriving because we had that underground and concrete, and it was lucrative. I mean, when I say lucrative, everybody had money.
Now, that was the era with the peak, like YBI and all that. Did you ever?
That was the era. That was the era of YBI, Bush Jones, Maserati. I mean, him and I were good friends. Me and Demetrius. We used to work together. I mean, I had my few little friends that I had friendships with, and and it was just, but it was still kosher. It wasn't crazy. It was starting to turn crazy because they took the flow of drugs out. I mean, when I first got into that business, you had to go to New York to get what you needed, and then when he looked up, shit, everything was right here. People were going to New York 3 or 4 times a week to get what they needed. Then that turnaround, shit, it was right here in your backyard. So that cut that out. So, you were able to really do and manufacture and do what you needed to do right here. So that cut a lot out. So then once they took a lot of the stuff out the system, then that's when all the fake buys and sticks up and killing was going on. I mean, like 77, 78, you gotta tell you to come and meet you. You want to get 5 keys, you get there, it's 2 pistols, and you dead. And they still in the money. I mean, a lot. I mean, they had hit the streets like 10 to 15 murders was going on just like that. And it was really.
Did that happen to anybody you knew?
Well, it would just happen to a lot of people. You know what I mean? I can't do no name dropping because investigation.
Yeah.
Like,
well, murder, yeah.
Yeah. But my point I want to add to that is that, and then a lot of us start saying, look, we got to get out. We got to do some things to change, what we live in. And so I was in the concert promotion business at that time. We were doing like, I was doing shows at the Fox. I mean, at the Palms, and doing shows at the Fisher Theater. I did 2 sellout shows with Robert Townsend at the Fisher Theater. I did Rob Bass, Sir Mix-a-Lot at the State Theater, Thanksgiving 1988. And then they were seeing the young black promoters were coming up, so they was freezing us out. Either you can get the venue and couldn't get the date, or you can get the date, you can get the act and couldn't get the venue. So they kept freezing us out. So I went and made my move to make a purchase of my own theater, which is what was my biggest mistake as an African-American businessman, and still had my foot in the streets. I went and bought the Adams Theater downtown.
Oh.
And when I bought the Adams Theater downtown, I moved into the Renaissance, and I had a whole floor with 45 employees. But at the same time, I'm still dibbling, dabbling in the streets. And so at that time, we had made a deal with Percy Sutton at the Apollo Theater in New York. We were going to call that theater the Apollo 2. Percy and them in New York had a program over there that they called VAF, Video, Audio, Studio, and Television. And that was up over the Apollo Theater. And the Apollo Theater was like 1,700 seats. And the Adams Theater was like 1,600 seats. And above the Adams Theater was 8 floors of office space. These buildings were identical in schematics. So we worked out a deal with Percy Sutton that we were going to make this the Apollo 2. And they were going to guarantee us our acts because Mike Illich and Quentin Perry and them were locking all the newcomers up from getting the major acts. I did Gregory Hines, I was doing Gregory Hines at the Masonic Temple, and I sent them like $20,000 to secure the date. And then when I went and got the act, then the theater said, well, we can't get that date because Mike Illich and them then bought the date, and you nothing we could do. They weren't going to jeopardize doing business with me, a newcomer, versus the account that they had were worth millions and millions of dollars. So at that time is when I said, look, I need my own theater. I don't need to get locked out anymore. But at that time, I didn't know that they had the casinos on the drawing board all along. And they were running everybody of African American descent from downtown. There were some brothers that owned a theater on Woodward. He had owned that property, but mysteriously he came up dead. Him when the property went into his family, they came up dead. And so it was just an era of a lot of things. And then because of that purchase, I think that was one of the leading things that was to my downfall of being in the street business and trying to go into legalize myself. I end up getting in trouble. My bond was the highest bond in U.S. history. My bond was $100 million.
Federal?
No, state. 100 million. And it was just to run away all my investors. And I was all in the news, the entrepreneur. I got arrested July 8th, 1990. But I was lucky. I got 15 years.
State?
State. And I ended up getting a reversal in the Court of Appeals, which is like damn near hitting the big game. And I promised the Lord, I said, look, God, if you let me up out of here, you ain't got to never worry about me coming back up here.
So how much time did you do?
3.5 years. And that 3.5, not being with a gal, man, having the scent of a woman, nigga, that shit drove me crazy. I mean, being in prison ain't nothing. It wasn't being in prison that bothered me, because I was in there with the whole neighborhood. I mean, when I got in, I was like, damn, this way you been. Oh, damn, nigga, there you go. And then I had a good job. I was the classification clerk. And one of my dogs came and told me, said, Tom, man, you the classification clerk. I said, well, what do you mean? He said, man, you got the power. I assigned the inmates their jobs. And so I noticed that in the prison kitchen, all the white boys had the kitchen jobs. Now, if you had the kitchen jobs, that's like $100 a month. You rich. And all the blacks had the porter jobs. They would scrub, and they get like, maybe $15, $20 a month. So I had the power to assign details. So I took all the white boys. I was an agent. I took all the white boys out the kitchen. And I took the kitchen detail and I gave it to all the killers, all the black killers. My boy J-Mo stood on the yard. He said, if any motherfucker fuck with Tom, they gonna have to come holler at my motherfucking ass. Nigga been down 25 years, ain't had no family. Man, I slid him cigarettes every month. You gotta learn to survive at that system. When you not a pit bull. I ain't no motherfucking poodle, but I ain't no pit.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And you got to learn how to, nigga, I wanna wake up tomorrow. I ain't trying to get fucked. Right. I ain't no faggot neither. Right. You know what I'm saying? But I ain't, I can throw a punch.
Come back.
I can't stick nobody. I didn't have the heart to stick nobody. So really, you learn how to survive. And that job helped me survive in the penitentiary.
Did you see a lot of violence in the prison, or did people get them, or you did?
It's just like it, sir. Just like the weak get devoured. And I seen it happen. And a lot of homosexual activity. And then a lot of just straight up jail. I mean, if you kept your nose clean, stay off that motherfucking basketball court, that's where that drama was. Nigga out there, they mad, that aggression, they got them 40s, nigga mad, fuck you, bitch, nigga ball, nigga. And, so a lot of that shit, it's just about how you carry yourself and what you